All right, guys, welcome to Help Educate Me. My name is Doug McCarty. I'll be your host today, and we've got another crazy show. I got introduced to this guy 4.5 months ago, somewhere in that region. I've been dying to interview him. He's got a lot of interesting stories. He's got a lot of interesting things he's got going on. Brian Luebben was brought to me through a person on Facebook, and I was like, sure, I'll talk to the guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's about. I don't know anything. Well, come to find out, this guy has a very keen business sense, and it's been a blast to get to know him. And I thought I would go a little bit further and see what this guy is all about. He has started a company called the Action Academy. It keeps people accountable for what the hell they are doing in business acquisition. It gives them the opportunity to talk to like-minded people. It gives them the opportunity to be where they thrive to be, and that's with people of their own mind. And that's what we all thrive to be around. And that's talking about interesting things that are relatable to each other is where I think it comes from. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Brian in here, and we're going to knock this out. So, Brian, how you doing, man?
Been better. No, I'm excited, man. Thank you so much for the kind words. This is going to be amazing. I had the pleasure of interviewing you on my podcast. So we've already dug deep into your backstory and your wins, your losses, and your lessons. So, man, for me, to the audience, I'm just somebody that asks really good questions to the right people consistently.
That's what it's about.
That's all I view it as. It's just like anybody that you see on a pedestal, anybody that you see on the YouTube videos, even if you go back and look through history, every single great person was only the result of the shoulders that they stood upon, right? So it's like even the Warren Buffetts of the world, they had the Ben Grahams that were mentoring them from when they were young, even the Carnegies and everyone. So I just ask good questions and shut up. So sometimes I'm on the opposite end of the microphone, which we are today.
Right on. So if we go back 10 years in your life, and this was before Action Academy, what was Brian Luebben doing 10 years ago that brought you to today? Because something happened to where Brian Luebben, want to be a person that can travel the world, do what I want, and have a community that can help me grow in every situation. What happened 10 years ago that made you get to this point?
Got everything I ever wanted. And so that's a good thing for people to do. It's like, let's get everyone rich, happy, and successful so they can realize that it's like the rich isn't like necessarily the yielding the happy, right? So what I did was I did everything the right way, the cookie cutter way. So I graduated college, 4-year marketing degree, realized, oh, okay, cool. If I work more, I do not get more money. So it was just this whole concept of salary, which is exciting in the beginning until you realize, oh, if I do better, I don't get more money. Like, what the heck?
Right.
Like, who wrote these rules? And so I discovered, variable compensation is the world of sales, basically. And so when I learned about sales, I was like, I'm going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do instead. And I started in a sales company, Fortune 500 B2B organization, made my way to the top over 4.5 years, just doing the right stuff consistently, man. Everything they write in the sales books where you're going and you're doing the rep rides, you're going and meeting the best reps in the country, and you're asking them how they do it. You're doing the training, the role playing, all that stuff. And I made it to the top, number 8 out of 5,079 sales reps. And at that point, I was like, obviously, I want to move up to sales manager, to vice president, regional, to senior vice president. That's my trajectory, right? I wanted the Rolexes, I wanted the cars, the Rolls Royces. And then I did this thing called shadowing your manager, right?
Yeah.
So then they're like, okay, this guy's got something. Let's put him like with the manager, with the VP to show them like what a day-to-day like in the life is. And so I did that. And as I shadowed my manager, I realized your life kind of sucks, dude. Like your life is just awful.
Right.
And then my vice president was even worse. So I realized, I was like, so you're telling me, like, here's the math behind it for people that are listening. I was like, you're telling me that as a top performer, I can make $250,000 a year, 20 to 30 hours a week because I got really good at my job, right? And you're pretty free. So you're telling me that if I get promoted to manager, I have less free time and I'm scrutinized more on my calendar and I have more accountability from the vice president. You're telling me as a vice president, I have scheduled in 15-minute increments throughout my day.
Yeah.
So if I kick ass over the next 5 years, you're telling me I'll make marginally more money work more and have less freedom. Got it. That doesn't make sense for me. That's when I started trying to go a different direction and started asking the question, like, what else is there?
Right on. So that's the great thing about every person's path. So your path is the right path in the definition of a dictionary.
Yeah.
My path is completely opposite. So I started off drinking, driving, getting DUIs, going to prison for 2 years, and figuring my life out. And that's the funny part about this, because sitting across from each other right now, we're the exact same people.
That means a lot, by the way.
Because
I look up to you.
Well, you shouldn't. you have to. You're shorter. So
not much, guys. Not much. 5-star rating and review for Doug's podcast.
There you go. Awesome. But I mean, that's the funny thing about life and life circles. You only take the advice that you've been given, and what you do with it and determine with it is what makes you who you are today. So that's the best part about this community that you're creating, is you're creating all walks of life in success, and you're making it kind of exclusive right at the moment. And I know you want to tighten that exclusivity up, because we all know that if everybody wants it, it becomes more valuable. And if we only allow certain people in, like Studio 54, you get in, you don't, that's the thing that we want. And that's the same way I grew my businesses. I made them exclusive, which I could charge what I wanted to, and I could get the people that I wanted. And then that way it grew so much more. But when Brian got to the point of understanding who he was, and then now all of a sudden he started this Action Academy, what was the biggest struggle getting this off the ground?
Yeah, well, I would say to add a little bit of context to that, right? So for people listening, what transpired over that kind of period of time was I made it to the top of the company. I looked at my boss's boss, realized, dude, I do not want your life. You're a terrible father. Like, sorry, and I'm not going to name him, but like, you're not with your kids. You're not watching your kids grow up. You're losing your hair. You're not doing anything. You're like, you have no health. You're losing your family. You're losing your time. You're losing your freedom. I don't want that. So I started buying real estate, started trying to plan my escape, started up a podcast so I can have an excuse to ask interesting, like financially free people questions. So that would help me on my journey, right?
Yeah.
Cheat code, everybody. Talking to a microphone, you can talk to anybody you want in the world.
You can be anybody you want.
Yeah, you can be anyone you want, talk to anybody you want. And so ended up leaving that job, to fast forward, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I left that job March 2022, and I went to travel around the world full time for 8 months, and that's what I did in 2022. And that was super fun. I'm glad I did it. Won't do it again for that prolonged period of time.
That was the point I wanted to get into, because why? So traveling, I love also.
Yeah.
And you know that. But what part of it, you just said the opposite of what I think everybody would say is, I'm never going to do that again.
Nope. So did it.
But why?
Everyone's got this idea that they want to. Everyone listening to this, they're like, I want $10,000 a month passive income so I can quit my job, travel around the world, build my own business, right? Everyone thinks they have this idea that they make it to 65 years old, hopefully, God willing, they make it to 65 years old, they're able to go retire on the beach, sip Mai Tais, basically piss off, do whatever. That's not the answer. And the kicker is you can live that same existence faster and earlier, like in your most energy rich and productive years, in your 30s, in your 40s, even in your 50s, hell, because everyone can have their own like power plant of energy, right? So for me, I was like, retirement is not the answer. Like for you already have made your money, but you're still kicking. You're not just laying around on the beach all day, because winners enjoy winning. And if a winner stops winning, then what are they no longer? They're no longer a freaking winner, right? Yeah. Because then your identity starts to disintegrate. So for my people listening that are like, I want to be a high performer, and I want to do all this stuff, and I want to like quit my job and then do nothing, you will lose your effing mind if you do that.
100%.
And that's what started to happen to me after I left. I did the thing that everyone wants to do. Everyone wants to do. They want to go travel around the world and have this exotic life. I lived in the Greek islands for a month. I went to Barcelona and I just was there for 3 weeks. I said, do I want to be here another week, or do I want to go somewhere else? Like I went all over Europe. I did the thing. I lived in Brazil. Moral of the story is, there came a point where I had to slow the hell down and ask the question, what is next?
Yeah.
What do I want?
Slow down.
Yeah. What do I want? Because here's a fun little anecdote, and it's a fun little story. I was doing research for a new book that I just wrote, From Passive to Passionate, And people, when they think of a cheetah, they think of sprinting, right?
Yeah.
So you see a cheetah and you're like, every single fucking picture of a cheetah's just going 90 miles an hour, which is how fast they get up to, 94 miles an hour on land. A cheetah can only sprint for 12 seconds. Most people don't know that. So 98% of a cheetah's existence is actually the stalking of the prey before the sprint. Because if a cheetah sprints longer than 12 seconds, it will overheat and die.
Nice.
Hyperthermia.
Sounds like my sex life.
Exactly. Yeah, I asked around, man. I asked around. They call him the cheetah of the bayou. So as I was doing that, like I was doing that research, I was like, we all want to sprint and sprint and sprint and sprint, and that's what we're rewarded for in corporate America, and that's what we're rewarded for in the workforce. But nobody takes time to slow down and say, you know, what prey are we trying to go after here? What gazelle do we want to take? And instead, we just are all burnt out from sprinting 24/7. So it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, which sounds privileged to freaking say, but to like just do nothing for a season. For 2 months, I was just like, I'm going to just ask the questions. What impact am I here to provide? What am I here to do? Who am I as a person? What internally drives my happiness? Because I'm telling you guys right now, sure as hell ain't money. Yeah. And the people that have the money will tell you that over and over again. It doesn't move the needle after a certain point.
The best part about money is making it.
Exactly.
Having it sucks.
Yeah, keeping it and not losing it all, right?
Yeah.
So then I was walking in Brazil, and there's this concept called navigation versus acceleration that I read in a book, and I believe that books you shouldn't force. I think this whole read a book a week thing is bullshit.
Yeah.
I think books will be called to you when it's time for you to read them. If you just get quiet and you're like, okay. So I just, for instance, read this book, Unreasonable Hospitality, and it's amazing, by this guy, Will Guidara. I wrote this book called The Buddha and the Badass. And in this book, it talks about navigation versus acceleration, which are the two seasons of life that you pivot between. Navigation is the period of time where you slow down and you set your vision. You cast what you want in the future. Like, what do you want as your life? Like, what do you want as your business? What do you want to be as a father, as a mother, as a husband, as a wife? Like, what do you want? And you take that time to slow down. And that's where those answers come. Acceleration is then when you're crystal clear on that idea and you can see the destination down the highway, and then you start mashing the gas down the highway. That's acceleration. So life is just a delicate dance between the two. You just go back and forth, back and forth. So that was my period of navigation, and that's where I was in Brazil, walking on the beach, and I said, I need to go from me to we. Like, this whole selfish Brian Luebben show, I'm already good. This doesn't move the needle for me anymore. If I make $1 million, $10 million, like, I'm not going to be happier intrinsically. Yeah. If I help other people, that lights my candle.
Right.
And so then that's the birth of like where all this came. And then there was a bunch of different iterations of what Action Academy looked like versus what it is today. And as it's changing, like it's a toddler that's growing into a teenager right now, is what I call it. Like, it kind of in the life cycles of business. And then it'll be a full grown adult that's paying taxes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll pause right there and let you take it wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, no, it's the hardest part to understand is, so I guess the best two pieces of advice I ever got was when I was second year sober, just starting to understand life again and understand that it's okay to fuck up and it's okay to make your life better again by doing the right things. What's doing the right thing?
Being human.
Yeah, exactly. And the ability to tell the truth is a lot harder than everybody thinks, because if you listen to every statement you make all day long, I bet that you've never told 100% of the truth all day long. Somebody will tell you'll tell a fib, or you know, how does my butt look in these jeans? It looks fine. You know, so one of those kind of stories. But if you tell 100% of the truth, you never have to remember what you say. Number one. Number two, when everything is going great, what do we need to do? We need to slow down, and we need to figure out why things are going great. When everything is going absolutely bonkers and batshit wrong, what do we need to do? We need to slow down, because we're moving too fast and screwing shit up. And people just don't realize that. They just let life go by so fast, or they screw it all up, and then they try to restart by doing the exact same thing. Well, now I'm broke, so I have to get to $1 million tomorrow. That doesn't happen. I mean, unless you hit something in the crypto agency or something like that, but we have to learn to slow down, take day by day, forget about 5 years from now. Just get done with what you need to get done today, and tomorrow will be here.
Can I share a story real quick that I had in Norway? I sent it out in the newsletter.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, I was selling uniforms. That's what I did for my day job, is I was selling uniforms. So my Tuesday would look like me driving to industrial parks across Georgia, across the entire state, and like talking to VPs of ops, of factories. So I learned how to sell everything to everyone. I sold to every single vertical and every single industry, which I'm so eternally grateful for that company for teaching me that, because I know how to sell to every personality type, like from B2B, B2C. I can go to the C-suite and put on a suit, and I can sell a mechanic, right? Shop towels. I can do anything when it comes to that. So I was in Norway, and there's two reasons why this is important. So one is I went up there to see the Northern Lights. I went to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, and it was just piss pouring rain the entire time. I couldn't see the lights. So I extended the trip another week to go to Norway, and it took me 3 Northern Lights tours to go out and see the lights, which for people that are listening, that means I went out with a guide, stood in the freezing cold all night to see the lights, didn't see them 3 times. And on the third time, I saw them, and I thought that was going to change my life. I thought that was going to be like a God moment, right?
Right.
No, it wasn't. Which is how life happens. It's how life works. We all go for these mountaintop moments, and we wait and wait and wait, and we're like, this is going to be it. I'm going to feel the most human I've ever felt. Like, this is what fulfillment and success looks like. It's not. It's the 99% that's the climb up the mountain where you stop to look at the sunrise behind you. That's life. And so I see the lights. I was like, this is super cool. But, okay, cool. Next bucket list item, right?
Right.
I go to this town called Ålesund, Norway afterwards. And it's a Tuesday, and it's this beautiful town, it's seaside by the fjords. It's carved out of the freaking mountains, and you've got this like beautiful, like multicolored canals where all these buildings are painted all these bright, beautiful colors, and it's just the most beautiful town in Norway. It's called Ålesund. And I'm sitting on this bench by the bay in Ålesund, and I have a podcast episode that I'm doing later that day, and I push it. I say, hey, can we push this 2 hours? They said, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I wanted to go sit on the freaking bench and watch the sunset.
Yeah.
Because I love sunsets. And so I'm sitting on this bench for 2 hours, don't have my phone, don't have anything to do, no one to answer to, nowhere to be. And I was like, fuck, man, this is freedom.
Yeah.
This is everything that I will ever need in my life. It's today, right here. Because what will happen next, right? I'm going to go on to grow this company to tens of millions of dollars, and then grow more companies, buy businesses, buy real estate, get up to $10 million net worth, $20 million, $50 million, $100 million net worth. And then at that point, I'm going to be able to afford really, really top tier talent, right? And then I bring in these really expensive team members that are the best and the brightest of what they do, that are so much astronomically better than me at running my own company. And then I'm going to outsource and I'm going to delegate to these people. Also, I can have the freedom to come back and sit on a fucking bench in Norway on a Tuesday and watch the sunset.
Yep.
So I saw the next 50 years of my life. And I was like, so all this is going to happen for me to come back and have the ability to sit on a bench. So all of life and all of success is the direct ability that you have to be able to sit on a bench and do nothing in the middle of a Tuesday.
Yep.
That is success.
We want everything, and we want to know everybody so that we can seclude ourselves later in life.
Yep.
That's the end goal, and that's the bereavement that we get out of everything, and it's nothing. There's no better feeling.
Yeah. So the moral of that story is I have everything I already need right now. Everything else is just a cherry on top.
Right.
And that makes you dangerous.
Yep.
So that's fulfillment.
Absolutely. So when we go through, you talk about your success stories. So who was the major influencer in your success?
I'm going to give a backwards answer. It's going to be something that most people wouldn't anticipate. And it's going to be, I got coaching on this and a lot of therapy. So we think of role models as like who we aspire to be and who we look up to. You know, people will list people like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, you know, or like my mom, my dad. One of my greatest role models in life is my dad, because I hate him.
Yeah.
I hate him.
Never
and he's a piece of shit. So I was raised basically in a single mother household with my dad there. And so that's a weird feeling. I would have preferred for him to just be gone. But instead, it was just an active, I don't want to be, like, you are not enough for my attention every single day. He didn't want to be a dad. That's okay. Cool. I've talked to him later in life, and he just told me straight up, I didn't want to be a dad. It's like, was not in my cards, and then it just happened, and I was like, okay, cool, I guess I'm going to do this thing. And thankfully, they got divorced. But every single day growing up, he was an air traffic controller, worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. He'd come home, I remember specifically, at like 6:45 in the evening, and then he would walk in. We were not allowed to talk to Dad because Dad's stressed out. And then Dad goes into the garage to work on his cars, and then he goes downstairs to work out, and he goes to sleep, and then when we wake up, he's gone again.
Wow.
That was my entire existence. I never saw my mom and dad kiss. I never saw my mom and dad hold hands. I never saw my mom. They slept in separate bedrooms the majority of my upbringing. Like, so pretty fucked up situation for a kid. Like, there was a period of time where I was like, am I ever going to be able to like love someone? Do I even know what love looks like? Right.
Yeah.
And so what a role model, what a blessing for me to see what hell looks like from that perspective. And I still had a privileged upbringing. I didn't get beat on. I didn't get verbally abused. My mom stepped up to the plate for both roles. You know, she was like, I'm going to take you to all the basketball practices. When it's your birthday, I'm going to put all the streamers and all the signs in the house. Like, I'm going to bring cupcakes to your class. And so she did everything. But the problem with my mom is that she gives everything to other people besides herself. She's the type where if the plane is crashing, she's not going to take the oxygen mask. She's going to give it all the oxygen away from everyone else. She's going to suffocate to death. And that's something that she still hasn't moved past. But it served, she had to do that. She had to be that to keep the family together growing up. So the long answer to the question is, like, what a role model, like, to look back. What a role model.
Yeah.
Because I look back at that, I'm like, that fucking stops here. No more of this. Because think about it. Like, his dad was worse to him than he was to me.
Yeah.
His dad beat the crap out of him. His dad verbally abused him, slapped his mom around in front of him. That was there. I don't talk to any of the Luebbens in my family. I'm more of a Sexton than a Luebben, which is why all my companies are Sexton Media Group, Sexton Property Group, Sexton. Like, it's all Sexton. And I've got it tattooed on my body. So his dad's dad was probably worse than that.
Yeah.
So how many years are we going back? Hundreds, 200, 1,000 years of shitty parents, shitty fathers, shitty family dynamics? And then Ed Milet's got this quote where he's like, there comes one person that changes the family tree. He calls it the one. And he wrote about it in his book, The Power of One More. And I'm that guy in my family. That's me. So it's like, you can't compete against me because, like, other people are doing it for money. But for me, I'm like, no, that's like me for my family. That's coming from a single dude that's 28 years old. I don't have a significant other. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. Everything I'm doing is for when I have that because, like, I'm going to be that dad that's there every single day. That's like taking my daughter to ballet, taking my son to basketball practice, like picking my kids up from school, dropping them off. Like, that is what I do everything for, is that version of me in the future. I'll be that husband taking my wife on the date nights and everything. Because my greatest role model in life was what not to do.
Right. Yeah, no, that's kind of the key to it. So self-awareness is what you're getting at, 100%. And if we don't have that within our position, so at what point did that self-awareness come forth? So like when you were in grade school and all this other stuff and you saw, you know, little Johnny, both his parents picked him up all the time and yours didn't. At what point do you think that actually happened? Because you probably weren't aware of this situation till maybe recently, within the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. But at some point, your mind clicked and says, "This shit stops here. This is not what I want to see for anybody else."
Adulthood, man. That was like very recent, last 3 years type of stuff. Because here's what everyone needs to know: we all have trauma.
Yeah,
all of us got trauma. All of us got these skeletons in the closet. You decide what you do with that.
Yep.
Like, you got sober. You're like, all right, I'm done with this.
Yep.
Like, you decide what you do with your demons. You decide if you want to dance with them or get defeated by them.
Right.
So, like, for me, I was like, let me open up the closet and see what I want to do with this. Because, like, all this anger and all this stuff that we hold for our parents, all these other people, you know, you have these grudges that you hold. And there's a quote, I don't know who to attribute to, but it's a poison that you drink that only kills you.
Yeah.
So hating somebody else, having resentment towards somebody else is a poison that only kills you.
Yep.
They're not even drinking the poison. It doesn't affect, they're not thinking about you at all. I promise you my dad doesn't think about me at all.
Right.
So, like, me resenting him only negatively impacts my life. That's in my body. That's in my soul. It's in my spirit. It's in my spirituality. And so I'm like, I'm done with that, dude. Like, you can either, like you said, let it defeat you, or you could say, okay, I'm going to use this to fuel me. So that energy is there regardless. You're not going to get rid of the energy because you're human.
Yep.
So it's like, what do I do with that energy? So I use it to channel me. And if you look back even further and you like break it down, a lot of entrepreneurs have dad issues. You know, because there was like withdrawal of love in the family psychologically. Because I've interviewed thousands of entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of that dynamic in the family where they're like, they had to have this chip on their shoulder. They had to prove something to someone. And so that's most people's existence, is trying to prove something to someone, or, you know, get the attention of someone that was withholding attention or withholding love. And they're like, I'm going to outperform, outsucceed so that I earn this love. That was me. So if I had been, you know, just pouring into as a kid, just giving everything I ever wanted, would I be who I am today? Would I have this drive? I don't think so. So I'm like, I just choose. It is what it is regardless. It's how you label it that determines how successful you're going to be in life and how happy you're going to be in life. So I just put the label on it as like, okay, like instead of having this gasoline be poured down my throat and kill me, I'm going to use that gas in my car and I'm going to drive the freaking Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's absolutely fucking phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's I talk to so many people every week, and the ability to have that self-awareness like that and be able to tell that story is the key to the release.
Mm-hmm.
So you being able to sit here on a podcast that's going to go out to 22 people, hopefully a little bit more.
Damn.
And we're going to actually get it out there and be able to talk about it and own it. Is half the battle, because I can sit here on this podcast and tell everybody, you know what, from age 11 till I was 25, I drank more beer than most people do between age 25 and 100. And I got 7 DUIs in that period. I was looking at 15 years in prison. And at that point, I blamed it all on my parents because they weren't controlling enough.
Yeah. External.
But what my parents taught me was what I have now. And that's the respect of others and the be able to help everybody and anybody who ever needs it without recognition. That's what my parents taught me. It was always there. We weren't rich as kids, you know, but I always wanted that. I wanted everything. I wanted the shiny shit. And now the shiny shit sucks because now you got to maintenance it and pay for it and all that other kind of crap. So just being able to be me is the biggest relief that I have. And that's exactly what I see from you, because you preach what you think.
Yeah, what I do.
Yeah, and that's the funnest part about it. So I admire everything that you've got going on, starting from scratch, bringing this community together, because the best thing about a community is the ability for that community to help everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's where I was trying to get with all this conversation is you can't get anywhere without everybody.
No.
You are the dumbest person in the room. I am the dumbest person in the room today. Everybody else is smarter than me because they're going to help me learn something new by what I listen to. And once you do that, your life is going to get a lot easier and a lot more fun. Your circle's going to get a little bit broader, but you still get to choose who you put in that circle.
Yeah. I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone, especially at these real estate meetups, everyone tries to be the most interesting person in the room. You have to be the most interested person in the room.
Yeah.
That's the secret. If I had a secret to give to anybody, it'd just be like, I do 2 things, right? So I ask people about them, and I'm just like genuinely curious about every aspect of every single person that I meet. And then also I come at them with like what I call golden retriever energy. So I act, and it's funny because it just is, I've done this my entire life. Like I come through with just like, we've been best friends for 10 years. And that's how I meet people, with that energy, always. Like, dude, how are you, man? Like, oh my God, like it's been so long. Just meeting for the first time. Like even me and you today.
100% trust.
Me and you today.
100% trust is given. It's only taken away by the person who gave the trust.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of my MO is I'm just like, yo, we are best friends until you give me a reason not to.
Yeah.
Right? And then
absolutely.
like that's how I treat everyone. You could do the opposite approach, you know.
But
and
then you're working too much.
Yeah, and you're kind of fighting an uphill battle, right?
Yeah, you're never giving yourself a chance.
Yeah, and then you said this quote that was pretty interesting where you were like, you were blaming your parents, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the external blame game.
Yeah.
And that'll shoot you in the foot more than
Every single time.
any underwriting mistake or anything. When you take your happiness and you put it in the hands of somebody else, which is also what holding a grudge is.
Yeah.
You're taking your happiness, you say, here you go. Have fun with this.
Yeah. I mean,
you play with this all you want.
I can blame the cops for arresting me.
Yeah.
But they're not the ones that drove drunk.
Exactly. So you have all these things in life where the more that you bring that blame internally, then it's a game that's controllable. And then that's where you become dangerous because now it's all on you. Yeah. And so that's why this whole victim mentality thing doesn't really jive out. And anybody that's made something of themselves will tell you that. And they recognize it. You're like, oh, I've got no room in my life for these victims. But yeah, when it comes to people, it's funny, Doug, because, you know, I thought for the longest time that, you know, I was like, I want to be a big real estate investor guy, and I will buy a bunch of real estate in my life. But that's not who I am. You look, what I call passionate income, right? People talk about passive income through business buying, real estate, all this stuff. I talk about passionate income, which is like look back to who you were as a kid and think about like what were you inherently interested in? What are your inherent gifts? What's your zone of genius? Because Albert Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, everyone will think they're an idiot, right? Because and that's what the school system does. Is they're like, dude,
we're not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
That's way too much politics.
Exactly, but that's what we've been grown up. It's like you have every single person is a genius in some way, at some shape and form, and then society, your parents, your family, your school system says, no. I need you to shave off the edges of your square peg and fit in the round hole.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's that period of like tampering and tapering off the edges to where you become dull.
Yeah.
And that's you being everyone else. So for me, looking back to my childhood, I would always like I call it infiltrating a friend group. So I would make friends with one person. I'd see a friend group that I wanted to be in, and I'd find one person that was like my end of that friend group, and I'd become friends with them. And then I'd slowly become friends with every single person in the friend group.
Right.
And then in college, I was the rush chair for my fraternity. So I would set the fraternity record for bringing people into the organization, and I got the best people, like the coolest people, the ones that wanted to party, that were also like super cool to hang out with. And I did that for 4 years. I was like, and that's how I got to know every single person in my college, was doing that. And then afterwards, then I joined this mastermind group called Go Abundance.
Yeah.
And then for them, I started recruiting people for them. So I was like, now I'm kind of a rush chair for millionaires. It's kind of funny when you think about it.
Yeah.
And then now you fast forward to what we were talking about before in the beginning of the story. I'm walking down this beach in Brazil, walking down Copacabana, and I'm like, I need to go from me to we. I'm like, okay, so looking back, like, what are the patterns, right? The patterns are I'm really, really good at community. I'm really, really good at recruitment. I'm really good at building things, building communities, and like just growing them because I've just done it over and over again, and that's where I feel most alive. I was like, that's the answer. That's what I need to be doing. And so, like, for the next foreseeable future, like, that's my jam, is growing communities, really strong communities, and doing them the right way.
Yeah, that's cool. So there's one thing that every person has in them that has nothing to do with the business. What's your one thing? One thing about you that has absolutely nothing to do with the business. You absolutely love that about yourself, but it has nothing to do with business. And then there's a follow-up question to this one, too. So be prepared.
I don't know, man. That's just the honest answer. It's like my sense of humor. Like, I enjoy just finding humor in everything.
Right.
It really has nothing to do with business, but it just makes life way more fun.
So what's the worst thing?
What's the worst thing about me?
Yeah. That has nothing to do with business.
So your greatest weakness is your greatest strength overused.
Correct.
And I tell everyone that, and they think it doesn't apply to them.
No, it applies to every person.
It applies to every person. So for me, my greatest strengths are my drive and my confidence.
Yeah.
So for me, get out of my way, dude. Like,
Right.
if I want something and I put it down on paper, I will bend earth to make it reality. And on the flip side of that, it's like people wait for the confidence to take action, but the reality is taking action is what yields confidence. I'm really, really good at taking action. My action muscle, which is like how fast you go from idea to implementation, is really, really developed because I've been working that mental gym for years and years and years now. And so that's my superpower is I can get an idea and I'm gone. You tell me to do something, I'm gone. So that's what builds my confidence because I'm like, I do what I say and I say what I do. And so it's very easy for me to win because, like you said, I don't have to lie about anything.
Yeah.
Because it's all documented.
Right.
It's hard to bullshit after 492 hours, right?
Right on.
So it's easy to bullshit in a 60-second video. So to drive the point home, my greatest strengths are my confidence and my drive. Also my greatest weaknesses. Because when those are overused, it becomes impatience and you're not able to be present in the moment. You're not able to be happy and fulfilled until you accomplish this result. And you become really, really hyper impatient. Mm-hmm. You're like, I want it now, I want it now, I want it now. And on the flip side of that, confidence becomes arrogance. And so it's easy to like lose the battle to that demon and then get ahead of yourself and think that you know everything.
Correct.
So the way that I combat that is I make sure to continuously put myself into new rooms, the different levels, different devils, so that I'm always the dumbest person in the room. Very, very hard to be cocky when it's like, even if you're making $1 million a year, which is awesome.
And you're still listening.
Yeah. But then you get to the room where every single person in the room is making 10 million.
Yeah.
And you're like, Okay.
Right.
You know, and then it doesn't end. You know that.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. People think
Never.
that it ends, but the 100 million guys are looking for the billionaires. And they're like, oh, what, you've got something, you know? And so it doesn't stop. And the billionaires are looking for people too. That's why they have this social calendar where they'll fly out across the world, because it gets harder and harder and harder to find people like that.
Once you get to the top 10, the top 10 of whatever section you're in, you're always looking to one up one of the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And then after reality sets in and you just go, fuck it, that's boring.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I just keep achieving what I can achieve for what I'm trying to do and see that going forth? Which brings me to my next question for you. The hammer that beats on your head all the time and tries to keep you down and the momentum going down, how do you get rid of it? How do you get rid of that fucking hammer?
Say more.
So the pressure of everything.
Mm.
And it keeps getting on our shoulders. The bigger we get, the bigger the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So you no longer, when you get to a point now where Action Academy is going to have 3, 5, 7, 10 employees. So now you just hired those 10 employees, but you didn't hire the 10 employees. You hired their entire family because you're feeding them.
Mm-hmm.
So the responsibility is getting larger and larger and larger. How do you keep that pressure in check?
It's probably just give up. Probably just yeah.
Cyanide.
Yeah, get up to 100 people. Yeah, nah, I should probably just give up.
Yeah.
No, it's just like your why, your purpose. So it's like Simon Sinek has a great book, Start with Why.
Yep.
And so if you have a strong enough why and you're doing it for the right reasons, then I have a buddy, Ben Kenny. See, that's a perfect example. It's like, are we actually buddies? Probably on paper, no. But in my head, I am.
Sure.
Because I talked to him and I was like, okay, cool. We're buddies for life.
Yeah.
You know? And so he's another guy up in your like neck of the woods where he's hundreds of millions. He's got a bunch of commas and zeros. And he's one of like Gary Keller's right-hand guys, like Keller Williams. Now he's got these multiple companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I had him on the podcast. Ben had a really, really good way of framing things that really just like kind of lit my candle, right? So he was like, making $1 million is cool. You know what's even cooler? Netting $1 million. You know what's cooler than that? Paying your top employees $1 million. You know what's even cooler than that? Giving away $1 million and it not affecting you.
Yeah.
He's like, so it's like you make it, you net it, you pay it, you give it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that's a fun game to play, because life's just a game.
Yeah.
Money isn't real. None of this exists.
It's the tax game.
Yeah. So none of this exists. It's all just like,
in the beginning,
it's all just numerical values numerical like marks on paper that we put that associates value.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
In the beginning, we thrive to not pay as many taxes as we can, and we bitch about it the entire way. We use every loophole to get through these situations. Then we get to the midpoint where we kind of want to have to pay these taxes, and we do pay these taxes. And then once you get to a certain point, you're just, fuck it. I'll just pay them. It's easier.
Yeah. I mean, because it's like we talk about ROI, but ROE, like return on equity, return on energy.
Exactly. Return on energy is the biggest feat.
That's why I sold my real estate.
Nice. That's people don't realize that. The amount of energy you put in needs to give you tenfold out.
Correct.
But if you're putting in tenfold in and you're only getting one out, you need to look at a mirror, or you need to go talk to somebody, or you need to get rid of what's going on in here and let something else go. You have to listen to somebody else before you can get to that 10x.
Yeah, I will say though, like when it came time to sell the real estate, that was another conversation I had with Ben on that podcast, because like he's like the best and the brightest in the world. He's a great business mind, and then he was drilling me on that, you know, and I didn't have much. I had 4 units. Like, it's not that much, you know, just a handful of houses. But for me, I was like, you don't sell real estate. You buy real estate, you hold it forever. Nope. And it was low fixed rate interest, low fixed rate debt, 2.5, 2.75%. It was cash flowing fine. And then I had to evict a tenant, you know, and then she caused $12,000 damage. So I had to go hire a guy, subcontractor in the GC and his subs to go fix it up in Atlanta while I'm living in Texas. And as I was going through that process, I was like, well, even with reserves, that kind of just killed the year's worth of cash flow. Yeah. You know, because when it rains, it pours. You have a septic that goes out. You have a roof that has a tree fall down on it. You have an eviction all at the same time. Yep. It always rains when it pours.
Absolutely.
And so I was just like, not even from a financial perspective, I was just like, why am I paying attention to this when I've got this thing in front of me and I've got this opportunity with Action Academy? Why am I even on a phone call about an eviction? Why am I talking to lawyers about an eviction right now? Why is this taking up my day?
Yeah.
Like, hold on a second. Like, cash flow is cool. We talking about cash flow. Real estate doesn't really give you that much cash flow in the beginning.
Nope.
Like,
It's a long-term game.
yeah, so real estate's more of an equity play. So you get the cash flow from the equity build up, which then you can roll the snowball down the hill, and then 10 years down the road, then you can leverage all these loopholes and all this equity to be able to really start like playing the game.
Correct.
But for me, I was like, I want cash flow. And so my business was providing that cash flow. I was like, dude, I can do 10x the cash flow that I could do in my real estate by focusing on this business and keeping my one thing.
Yep.
And so I was like, I build this up into a cash flow machine that I could use that. And once if I put 2 years into this and really, really focus on it, I will lose that balance sheet game with my friends in the short term, because what will happen is their equity is building. My balance sheet is like, I don't have any assets anymore. Oh my God, what's going on? Until all of a sudden I put my head up and I've got $3 to $5 million of cash flow coming in that I can take, at a 50-60% margin. And all of a sudden, I'm dangerous because I've got liquid net worth that I can start deploying at that point, and I've got all the relationships in the world to start building like equity in huge gobs. So I was like, let me start with cash flow, then build the equity. And I think people do it backwards, where they're trying to build cash flow, but they're really playing an equity game.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I've got all my life to play this equity game, and I will most certainly make that delta up. And then all of a sudden, like I'm off to the races and ahead of everyone. But it's like, it's more of a vanity metric, So like for me right now, I'm like, you can't pay your mortgage with equity. Like you have to pay it with cash flow.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, let me build this cash flow thing up so I can, do that, earn $1 million, net $1 million, pay $1 million, give $1 million. And then during that period and process, and that's when I'm going to start buying like big real estate. So that's, but I could be completely wrong.
No, you're right on. I mean, it's self-awareness of what we're trying to build. That's just it. I mean, we in order to get where we want to get, we had to listen to somebody else. All right. So what is that called? That's called highest and best use of our time. So what opportunity are we going to use with that piece of material or time? So,
and there's a whole other thing in that is there's this concept called light versus heavy.
Yeah.
So it's not hard or easy. It's just like, how do you feel tackling the task? So for me, like, and I figured this out like really fast. It was very apparent to me when I was with my friend who was going to be the realtor that sold my properties, and he's a friend in Atlanta that was the GC for my rehab. And we go in and we're walking through the property, and he's like, okay, I got to fix this, and this. Oh, this is the easiest project to do all week. And I'm like, looking at him, I'm like, dude, are you serious? And for him, he just had the smile on his face. He's like, yeah, dude, I do this in my sleep. And for me, I was like, dude, it took me 4 months to fix a freaking hole in a porch because it felt heavy for me. Sure. I can go, prospect and work on Action Academy 15 hours a day doing hard stuff, and that feels light to me. Me fixing a hole in a freaking fence post, or me fixing a fence that a tree fell on,
a different challenge.
Take me 6 months because it feels so heavy to me. So I was like,
we only procrastinate what we don't know.
Exactly. So for me, I was just like, dude, I don't want to be doing this. Like, you guys love doing this. I love building this community. So it was me running my race, and I was just like, I'm not gonna run anyone else's race. I'm gonna run mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, I love that part. I'm only going to run my race. And I was a big procrastinator of what I didn't know, because if I didn't know it, I didn't want to do it.
Oh yeah.
And then, my sponsor and my mentor said, okay, from this point forward, everything that you don't know, you are going to take on.
Surprise.
And I'm like, what a dick. That just ruined my life because I don't want to learn this shit. I want to keep doing exactly what I'm doing. And it doesn't get you anywhere. It just keeps you on a straight and narrow path. You can't climb nothing if you don't know how to do anything.
Yeah. Everything worth having in life is on the other side of fear and difficulty.
Absolutely. Fear is his greatest face.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right. What do you want to say about Action Academy? And then we're going to bring your counterpart that's helping you run this company into the picture, and we're going to talk to her a little bit. But what do you want to talk about the Action Academy? Let these people know what it is. I've already said my 2 cents on it. I think it's a great community. It's an atmosphere that everybody wants to be part of, which they all cannot. You have to be able to hit the parameters to be able to be part of this, and that's the coolest thing about it. So what do you want to tell?
It's pretty sick. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's my passion. It's what I do. It's like, it's really, really cool. And that's another reason I sold my real estate, which I think I'll look back on this in 10 or 20 years and I'll say, oh, yeah, I'm really glad I made that move. I think it's going to be a pivotal moment that I can really talk about. But for me, like the calculated bet that I took was I was like, I want to have so much obnoxious amounts of cash on hand that I have zero scarcity when I'm running my business. Because what does a business owner in? Lack of cash flow, and then all of a sudden they can't make payroll. And that's where all the stress comes on. You talk about the hammer beating on your head.
Yep.
It's because you can't make payroll.
Right.
You can't feed the families. So it's like, if I can't pay Caitlin, if I can't pay Maggie, if I can't pay my people, then I'm like, ooh, that's a really sticky place to be in. Then what happens? Then I start letting everyone in the community. I start saying, I start getting commission breath. You should join. Hey, you should join.
Yeah.
Hey, just checking up. Talked to you 3 months ago. You should join. You know,
It's no longer what you want. It's desperate.
Don't want to run that business. So instead, I've got 3 years of cash. I could just piss off and do nothing for 3 years. I'm solid. I could live the exact lifestyle I'm living, jetting around. 3 years, I'm good with the cash that I have sitting right now from the sale of those properties. So, like for me, Action Academy, what it is for people listening is I think online courses are bullshit, and Action Academy started as an online
100%.
course. We don't need any more information, and this is validated, by the way, by some very serious and famous internet marketers that I have now become friends with, like the Pat Flynn's of the world, the John Lee Dumases, that have made Amy Porterfields, that have made their money like through online courses. Like it's getting saturated. And now, like in the next 3 to 5 years, people are getting like they're kind of sick of paying for another online course, another online course, another online course. People want to have their hand held again. So that's how it started all throughout human history was the apprenticeship model, right? Even going back to medieval times, if you wanted to be a blacksmith, what do? You work under a fucking blacksmith.
Right.
And they'll swing the hammer, swing the hammer, swing the hammer. And they'll, on the anvil, they will be there with you. Hey, you're swinging the hammer the wrong way. Swing it upright, not to the side. And then you have that feedback, right? There's nuance. So we've gotten away from that with the digital age and technology and everything. So now we're moving back towards that where I'm like, hey, we'll give you all the information on the best hammer to use, the best anvil, the best material, the best smeltering process, but we're going to be with there helping you swing the hammer, you know, and making sure that you're getting your reps in to do it.
Yeah.
So that's where the accountability comes in. So Action Academy is just 3 things. It's very unsexy. Access, accountability, action.
Yep.
That is the secret formula. Secret to success is there is no secret.
I like to think that you stole that from me somehow by not knowing me and then actually started doing it. So
yeah, fuck off.
You know,
yeah.
it's just one of those.
Still in everything.
I've been living that way for a long time, and I'm like, this cocksucker stole my stuff. But hey,
but no, that's validating, man. And like even Pat Flynn, all those guys, like I had them on my podcast, and that's gonna air here, where they were like, hey, dude, like the way you're running your business model is how we're gonna run it too. And then we could talk about the business side of it as well with recurring revenue and how that helps you manage the cash flow. But just from a purely like perspective, I'm selling to me 4 years ago, which is the best. If you're listening to this, and you want to start your own thing, sell to who you were, solve your own problem 4 years ago, because nobody knows that problem better than you do.
Yep.
And so I was buying course after course. I already had real estate, and I was just like, I'm already doing the things. I'm a high performer. I would join these mastermind groups, these online courses. You have 1,000 people in a Facebook group, and you have 7 people talking. 7 people.
Yep.
That's it. No one else is doing anything. I'm like, wait, I'm paying money to be here, but everyone else is just like swiping their credit card to be here, and they're not doing anything, which is the biggest problem in online education in general.
Absolutely.
You can't get anybody to do anything. So I said, we can fix that. Like, that's $1 billion problem to solve. If we could solve the problem of accountability, ooh, we're dangerous, right?
yeah.
And so that's the problem that I'm choosing to solve, and that's what I put my head towards every single day. So when it comes to accountability, like that's what we're doing this for, is so that every single person comes in, and it's like not only are we starting with clarity and we're putting you through the modules, we're putting you through the training, but you're in a community that's actually like tracked, monitored, and managed. So we track engagement. We have an 83.7% weekly engagement rate. I know my numbers off the back of my freaking hand. Like we track it every single week. And so people are actually doing the thing. And if they're not doing the thing, they're getting a phone call from my team that first leads with empathy, and then it goes into accountability. So we lead with empathy always. You don't know when death, divorce, sickness happens. Maybe somebody got laid off from their job.
Sure.
So if somebody's inactive for 30 days in Action Academy, they're not showing up to the calls, they're not in the Facebook group, they're not showing up to their pod, they're not participating, they're a ghost. They're going to get a call from us. Say, hey, man, or hey, girl, like, what's going on? Like, how can we help? Is everything okay? You know, then if we get ghosted on that, if they don't reply to that, okay, cool. Now it's time to like have some accountability. Do you want to be here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to be here? If you don't, like, we will kick you out and refund you the prorated amount for the remainder of membership, because you are taking up the spot for somebody else. And the group is only as strong as its weakest link. Exactly. And so we remove all the weak links. We've done a pretty good job of that. I think we've kicked out about like 30 people, 31 people to date. which is like crazy from a cash flow perspective. I think it's going to be the right move long term, because then what you have is you join and you have this culture of everyone's like really active and engaged and participating and pushing into each other and pushing on each other. And then that's where magic happens. So it's like, I'll pause after this, but it's like if you told somebody's like, I want to buy 100 units this year. That's what I want to do. I don't want to buy another house. I want to buy 100. I want to buy 100 unit multifamily. You told them every single step to do it. You say, okay, here's how you submit LOIs. Here's how you do this. Here's how you underwrite. Here's how you find these properties. Here's the best markets to do it in. Here's my operator. Here's their phone number. Here's my property manager. He's been doing it for 20 years. Take them. Yep. They still wouldn't do it.
I know.
Because you don't have the confidence to do it. And they don't have the hand-holding that's required. They don't have the accountability to do it. And they don't have the hand-holding that's required to pull it off. So it's the nuance, right? Yeah. It's walking the property with someone that's done it. It's looking over the books and the rent rolls and the P&Ls with somebody that's already been down that path and everything. It's like, that's the itch that we're trying to scratch, right?
Right.
It's we're like, okay, cool. You need that one-on-one support. And like, we're going to do that at scale for people. And you can only be rolling with us if you have that, you know, that drive, that fire, that culture, because I can't coach culture. Yep. Like, you have to come in with showing some demonstration of excellence already. You're already a high performer. You're already churning. You're already doing your thing. And then we just hope you channel that energy. So like I call them gunpowder. So I'm like, gunpowder and sprinters is who we serve. So sprinter is someone that's running 100 miles an hour. They're looking to the left, they're looking to the right. Everyone else is walking and jogging. And they're like, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, I want to be around people that are running my speed or faster so I can get better.
Yeah.
So I serve those people. And then we put them with other sprinters, and then the other person I serve is gunpowder, to where they just need one idea, one interaction, one connection, and then they explode. So that's who we serve in Action Academy.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, this is another great podcast. It's the Help Educate Me podcast was started so that we could ask the questions that everybody wants to ask and nobody can get the answers for. So the reason why I went to this route is because now I get to interview successful people, mid-successful people, or people that are struggling on how they want to get successful. That's what the information is I love. Mm-hmm. And to be able to get myself in front of yourself is absolutely phenomenal. I do appreciate your time. You will not believe that, but I really do. I learn so much every single day when I talk to people of your caliber, just the travel aspect. I wish I had that ability. I mean, I have the ability. I don't have the stamina to go do it. I don't like living out of a suitcase. I like the comforts of my own bed. Yeah. So today, again, we've been talking to Brian Luebben with the Action Academy. I'm going to bring in Caitlin in about 2 minutes. We're going to take a little break, but for you guys, it's going to go instantly, so you're going to be right back. But we'll be right back. 2 minutes. Thanks.
Boom.